Hi everyone! Happy October! Are you excited that it's October? I am! Halloween might be a little bit different this year, but Halloween is Halloween regardless of the year that it is. I thought that to get myself and you guys a little bit in the mood for Halloween, I wanted to make some spooky type of videos to add to my channel for your listening entertainment. So we'll see how many of these videos I can manage to get out for the month of October, but for now, let's just start with this one. Today I would like to talk about the cursing of Christopher Case. I thought this was such an interesting story when I first read it a couple of years ago. I was walking in a garage that was dimly lit while I was reading this story on my phone, and I have to admit I did kind of get some chills and I felt like I needed to look over my shoulder a few times. So I will just get right into it and let's get started. So Christopher Case, what we're going to really be talking about is one important week of his life back in 1991. Christopher Case, I could not really find too much information in regards to his birthday, so I can't say exactly when he was born, although I believe he was in his early to mid 30s when this happened. Christopher Case lived in Seattle, Washington. He worked as an executive producer at a company that manufactured a lot of the music that was played in elevators. He traveled a lot for work, which is the reason why he didn't really pursue a lot of relationships with women. He preferred to stay on his own. In fact, his friends described him as a bit of a loner. He was very much loved by his friends, and instead of saying loner, I would say more of a homebody. It sounded like he just really preferred to stay on his own a lot of times, stay at home. One thing he was described as is the type of person that on a Friday or Saturday night, instead of going out to a club or a bar to drink and dance, he preferred to just stay home, listen to music by himself, and just enjoy his own company. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I can relate. I am that type of person.
The worst anyone could say about him was that he was sometimes a bit of a loner. He'd been a disc jockey back home, and often he'd prefer to listen to his favourite music than socialise at night. One of the reporters who covered the story was Louis Corselletti of the Seattle Times.
What intrigued me was the fact that from everything I knew, from what I'd been told about him, he was a pretty level-headed guy.
So this all started around April 11, 1991. Christopher Case went to San Francisco for a business trip. While on that business trip, he was introduced to a woman that he had something in common with. They were both fans of ancient music. This woman was said to have a lot of ancient music, specifically from Egypt, that she worked with importing from Egypt. And so they discussed this over dinner one or two nights. Christopher, when he agreed to go out to dinner with this woman, it was purely out of this interest that they shared, so they could discuss this music that she worked with importing.
She was older than he was, and she was enamored of him. And he didn't like that. He had no interest in her whatsoever other than the music.
However, it became clear pretty quick that this woman had an ulterior motive to these dinners. She began to flirt with Christopher Case, and he soon realized that she was interested in him romantically. And as I mentioned, Christopher was not interested in those types of relationships with women. He wanted to focus solely on work, and he traveled too much to sustain anything like that long term. So when he could no longer ignore her advances, he politely rejected her and told her that he wanted to be strictly platonic. Regardless of this, the woman became extremely enraged. She became so enraged that she was said to have told him, "I'm a witch. You will be sorry. You are now cursed and you'll most likely be dead within the week." This obviously shook Christopher a bit, because when he got back from his business trip, he confided in one of his friends about this encounter that he had. His friends encouraged him that it was just a woman who couldn't take rejection very well, and to just forget about it and move on with his life. Christopher agreed with them, but soon his attitude began to change. It was on April 14th that Christopher confided with his friends that he had been attacked during the night while he was sleeping. He was described to have said that around his apartment he would hear whispers and he would see shadows on the walls. At night, he said that he would wake up feeling as if there were hands around his throat, squeezing as hard as they could, to the point where he couldn't breathe. He said that he saw the witch visit him and attack him while he was sleeping, and he would wake up with blood all over his hands.
I wish there was some way that people could hear what I heard in his voice and what he said. It was a living hell.
It was clear from the way that he was acting that Christopher truly believed that he was cursed, and he was very frightened and very serious about this. Regardless, his friends tried to encourage him that he was all right, everything was going to be okay, but he couldn't listen to that. He truly believed in the witch's curse. On April 14th, the same day that Christopher confided with his friends, he went to a religious bookstore. He wanted to get advice on someone that might have more experience dealing with witchcraft. The bookstore owner also claimed that Christopher was in search of as many crosses as he could gather and holy water if available.
He came in, asked where the crosses were, and I saw him collect quite a few in his hands. So I asked him what he was going to be using them for. And he mentioned at that time that he was battling some supernatural forces, and he wanted them for protection. He wanted to know if they had been blessed with holy water.
For the remainder of the week, Christopher would continue to tell his friends about these attacks that were growing more intense in manner, just continued every night, became longer, obviously a lot scarier for him. He was terrified that he was going to die by the end of the week, and his friends were genuinely concerned about him. They started calling him up at night to check on him, make sure he was okay. He would leave voicemails on their answering machines to explain these attacks that he was receiving. As the week dragged on, Christopher began to act less frightened about everything that was happening to him, and he entered more of a mindset of acceptance. It is said that the last voicemail he left on his best friend's answering machine was of him admitting that his end was soon to come, that he was likely not going to live through the night, and he was going to do his best to fight his way through. This was on April 17th. The morning after, upon hearing this voicemail, his friend was so concerned she called his apartment frantically and could not get him on the phone. She eventually did call the police to have them check in on him. The police entered Christopher Case's apartment to see that there was salt spread around the door. It was spread from corner to corner of the apartment, from the front all the way to the back, through the hallway, everywhere. There were also crosses scattered around the apartment, as if he had been partaking in religious rituals in an attempt to ward off the evil spirits that he believed were haunting him. In the bathroom, there was even more salt scattered around the floor. There were crucifixes everywhere. Religious music was playing. And in the bathtub lay Christopher Case, who was dead.
He was kneeling in prayer.
I saw the victim slumped over on his knees with his head resting on the edge of the tub, left of the faucet against the wall.
It was determined by the coroner that his cause of death was heart failure, although Christopher was convinced that he was cursed, and he even predicted his own death, saying that the witch had won. It's also interesting that this did happen within a week of that fateful date with that supposed witch who claimed that she had cursed him. So what do you think? Do you think that Christopher Case did die of cursing, or was it merely heart failure? One thing to remember about heart failure is it is not usually a sudden onset and can spread over a considerable amount of time. It's possible that the week leading up to Christopher's death, he was experiencing symptoms of his body shutting down, such as hallucinations, feelings of panic and dread and impending doom. And it could be that everything he was experiencing was due to his heart failure, but he was convinced that he was cursed because of the encounter he had had with the woman in San Francisco. But what do you think? Do you think this is just the timing is just too much of a coincidence? Perhaps that woman really did curse Christopher Case. He for sure thought so. As for his friends, many of them think he simply died of fright.
I firmly believe that he died of fright.
My guess is that he was scared to death, literally.
Alright, so that's it for today's video. I'm sorry if this one was a little bit short, but honestly, the information on Christopher Case is a little bit limited. So it was hard for me to do extremely thorough research. Like I said, I couldn't even figure out what his birthday was. That being said, I hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. For this fine month of October, there will be more videos coming shortly. And until October's over, let's keep rocking. Bye.